name is Lisette Lutz, and today we will be making a pastel landscape painting inspired by Amanda Bradley's Photographs with Text. We will be exploring the ways that you can connect with nature through text and observation. This lesson is intended for high school students, grades 9 through 12. So for this lesson, we're going to be needing some photographs of your home or areas around your home, things that remind you of home. I grew up here in Miami, so I've got some photographs of landscapes from around my neighborhood on Miami Beach that remind me of home, that have plants, flowers, and different kinds of trees that I grew up with. You can also just look outside of your window and draw from observation from areas that are right outside in your backyard. I also have some pastel paper, which is important to use. We're going to be using soft pastels that feel very soft, almost like chalk. These are not oil pastels, so just not to confuse the two. So for the soft pastels, you want to have paper that almost feels like sandpaper and has a little bit of grit to it. And my favorite color to use is this beautiful kind of burnt orange, burnt sienna color. It just makes for a really nice background for landscape paintings like the one that I'm going to do today. But when you get your pack of paper, you're going to see that you have different background tones. This is a gray color. Some of the pages are white. Any of these are fine. It's just a personal preference. I really enjoy working with this beautiful burnt sienna color. So I've got my image, I've got my paper, I have a set of soft pastels. You're also going to want some wet napkins or wipes. The pastels do produce a lot of dust or chalk. So as you work, you're going to notice that I kind of tap the paper so that the dust falls on to my covered work surface. I have a piece of parchment paper here covering the table. And you want to do that periodically and clean up that dust because it does accumulate quite a bit. The size of my paper is 9 inches by 12, so I'm working on a fairly small piece of paper, but it's manageable. And when we finish, you're going to want to add text to the top on clear transparency sheets. And we're going to go over that later on in the video, and that's going to be overlaid on top of your beautiful landscape paintings. So let's get started. So the way that I like to begin is by taking one of the darker colors. So I'm going to get a shade darker than the paper. And again, you don't need to worry about this color being too overpowering because these pastels are really going to cover this. You're just going to have some of that beautiful burnt sienna kind of peeking through, and it gives the painting almost like a golden quality. So I'm going to use a darker shade. This is almost like a wine burgundy kind of reddish color, and I'm going to use this to sketch. I'm not actually going to sketch with a pencil. I'm going to sketch directly with my soft pastels, and I'm going to just lay the horizon, placement of some of the trees in my photograph that I'm looking at, and some of the plants, and then I'll begin adding the colors on top. So now that I have just a very loose kind of a sketch of the different areas, I have a tall tree in this corner, I've got the horizon line, and some tall grasses here in the foreground. It's important to break your composition up in a landscape painting into those three parts. So we're going to have our background, which is the sky and the clouds, our middle ground, which is going to be the horizon that have beautiful trees and bushes, and then in our foreground or in the front, we've got tall grasses and plants and some nice tall trees over here. So now I'm going to go in with my colors and start building the colors for my landscape. So I've got some blues for my sky and white and gray for the clouds. And I like to include some purples too sometimes. So I'm going to start mapping out the colors. Now, something to remember when you're using the pastels on the paper, Try to use short strokes. And remember, in Amanda Bradley's work, a lot of the times her images are very blurry, especially in this exhibition. So we're gonna make these landscapes blurred landscapes, which is a lot of fun because you can use short brush strokes. It can have a lot of movement. It doesn't have to be so sharp or realistic. It can almost have this dreamlike quality. So keep that in mind when you're mixing your colors and doing your brush strokes. Try not to make it too sharp. You can keep those lines blurred. Okay, so I've got some of my sky already there. I've worked a lot of layers. I'm not quite done yet, but I'm gonna come back to the sky after I lay down some of the colors here in the middle ground and in the foreground, and you can see how messy it gets. So since I'm changing colors, I'm gonna go ahead and wipe before I move on to the next area. So I've pulled out some greens, some yellow ochres and browns and blues to work into now my middle ground. And go slowly and layer your colors, your darks and your brightest lights on top. So I've got this very dark blue, it's called Prussian blue, and it almost looks like black. But adding those little bits of Prussian blue in those areas, in the shadows, it's really gonna deepen your darks. You wanna have really nice deep dark areas and then also really bright highlighted areas. So this needs to be further developed. I would need to add more layers of light on top of the dark. I have another piece here that is more developed that I had started earlier. And you can see that I have my deep dark areas and then areas where I've brightened and added some little highlights with yellow or even with like a light lime green, just to bring out where the sun is hitting the top of the trees. You can even go in with more of the white and highlight some of those clouds to give it more dimension. So building this paper, because it has that gritty texture, really allows you to build layers of color. So once this is complete and you're happy with all of your layers and you've got those deep darks and the highlights, you're gonna just tap it gently to get rid of any excess powder dust from your chalk pastels. And we're just gonna let this sit to the side, and then we're going to develop our text that's gonna go on top. So here I have some clear transparency sheets that are able to go into the printer. And I printed some text inspired by Amanda Bradley, and one of her images has the phrase "waiting to reach the horizon" on it. So I put these sheets through the printer and you can see the text right here. And if you have a color printer at home, you can play around with different colors, maybe perhaps print in blue or in a gray, even in white. And once you finish, this is a great way to cover your pastel painting so it doesn't get smeared or smudged, and it protects it. And you just lay that text right over your landscape painting. You can see here I have some with different sizes. You can layer multiple images and sheets to get different effects, or you can do just one. And the way that I attach it is just with a piece of tape. Very carefully, just go right up to the edge and fold it over. So I'm gonna do that again. Line up that tape on the edge and roll it over to the back so that it's just lying right there on top of your pastel landscape painting. And once you have it secured in place, it's ready to display. You can mat or frame it to make it look even more beautiful. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Thank you.